Hey everybody, welcome back to the Dawn of Drones podcast. So great to have folks out there, and what a week it's been already. I mean, it's only Wednesday, but we are knee deep in the FAA's National Drone Safety Awareness Week, and I don't know about you, but it's been hard to keep up. I was at Commercial UAV last week in Las Vegas, and I'm still digging out, but this week kicked off huge, and it's really perfect timing because we are also in the middle of our movers and shakers month, and no better month really to have some great folks from the FAA. So Dave Krause is actually the CEO of Influential Drones, but he's a volunteer with the FAA, and in fact he is the FAA's industry lead. And so it's such an honor to have Dave on here. And then of course we have Patricia Mathes as well. She's the manager of the FAAST team, and we're going to learn all about that today and how you guys all can get involved in helping build a safety culture. So anyway, that's what this episode is all about. So great to have you both. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Dawn.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, so and just a reminder, everybody out there, this is live, so please jump in. Put your comments in there. Let us know where you're from. Give us some positive encouragement. We absolutely love that. Ask your questions, because you know what? You have the experts here today. And so anything you want to know about safety and what the FAA is doing, these are the two folks that you're going to want to ask about that. I also, of course, wanted to thank our sponsors of the month, which are ParaZero and Delta Drone International. So it's been just a great month so far. So let's go ahead and start off with some introductions. I gave a little bit of background there, but Patricia, why don't we start with you? And if you can just tell us a little bit about your background before you became the manager of the FAAST team.
Awesome. And thanks so much, Dawn. And like you said, we did have a great time last week working with you out of Las Vegas. So we're just going to continue this. So yes, before I became the manager of the National FAAST team, I had about 35 years within the FAA under my belt. And prior to that, another 10 years of aviation experience. So I come to you all with an excitement and a love of safety in aviation. Within my FAA career, I've been so fortunate to be principal operations inspectors, manager of a couple of airline certificate management offices. I managed a special investigations group. But with all that, I was within the safety organization at all times. I became the assistant manager for the National Safety Program, the National FAAST team, 3 years ago. So thankfully, it was a natural step into becoming the manager of the team. And I'm excited to tell y'all more about what we do and how we work within all of our industry partners as we go along.
Well, that's awesome. And that background you have also in the manned aviation is so important as we think about integration of drones in the national airspace. So that background is absolutely perfect. And 35 years of service. I mean, thank you, Patricia. Having been in the military, people always thank me for my military service, but the federal employees and everybody out there, it really takes a team. So wow, that's amazing. I want to go to Dave and talk to him. But before I do, I wanted to throw out there, Dan Brown says hello from LaBelle, Florida. So hello there, Dan. Thanks for joining in. And we also have SWMS. So just maybe some initials coming at us from Houston, Texas. So great to have Texas on board this morning as well. So Dave, go ahead and tell us a little bit about your background as well.
So I used to be a software architect for IBM. I traveled 100% of the time. My priorities and what I was assigned to was troubled projects. So essentially, I used to go in, try to have to do an assessment of situations and try to come up with a solution. After doing that for so long, I decided that I was getting burnt out. So I wanted to work for myself. I happened to be on vacation, and on my ride home, my business partner who's an FAA certified flight instructor, happened to be teaching me how to fly, called me up and asked me if I wanted to start a drone business. That's kind of how I kind of fell into this. It was definitely not something that was planned.
Well, Dave, what I'll say about your business and what you're doing, you're still a problem solver. And I know that you still travel a little bit. I know with COVID, it's been hard for all of us. But absolutely, I mean, you are out there, and so you've also built up a great relationship, a volunteer kind of portfolio with the FAA in a whole host of positions. Do you want to just kind of give us the quick rundown of all the different lines of effort you're doing?
Well, the role of a FAASTeam rep is all voluntary. So they're willing to let you do whatever you're willing to put into it. And when I first started it, I decided that I needed to learn how to understand all the different aspects of aviation. So I started doing presentations, I started attending things. What I found is that my time commitments wouldn't allow me to always make nice slides like we did for our 2-minute videos. It's easier for me to come in and talk like I'm doing now. And so what I found is that I just, in the process of me traveling, I just started talking to more and more people and just talking about safety, talking about drones, and talking about where this industry needed to go towards. I reached a point where then I reached out to the FAA and I asked to be an industry member. That took quite a while, but I'm happy they did that. And then we just kind of hold ourselves to a higher standard because that's what the FAA requires from us. We actually have a letter of understanding with the FAA, which says certain guidelines on things that we have to do and whatnot. And then I would say probably about 6 or 7 months ago, they asked me to also be a lead for the area as well. So, I mean, I'm all over the place, but you know, what I'm doing is I'm doing it with influential drones. A lot of people think the FAA is paying my bill to travel. That's far from the case. But what I'm doing is I'm using that opportunity, or I'm wearing this FAAST shirt where I'm now just able to educate people and have a voice. What I found is that a lot of people just don't know where to turn to, and that's all I'm doing is telling them to go to FAASafety.gov or go on the FAA's website. Simple, actually.
Yeah, I mean, so much to peel back there, Dave. So I do want to talk with Patricia also about exactly what is the FAASTeam. And honestly, so you alluded to something earlier I want to double back on. You mentioned, hey, last week a commercial UAV. So just for those that weren't involved, we were on Clubhouse live from the expo floor with Patricia and Dave, who were online. It was awesome. And so that's what she was talking about. And then the second thing I wanted to say before I forget, because I'm very forgetful, Dave just mentioned some 2-minute videos. So if you guys haven't seen those, every single day this week, Dave and I have put together a 3 or less minute video of this theme of the day for National Drone Safety Awareness Week. Those are all up on DroneLife.com. So check those out. That's what he was talking about, how it's easier just to do this. I'll tell you, the blooper reel is going to be hysterical if we ever get it together and push it out. But it was fun to do with you, Dave, and I hope everybody enjoys those. But Patricia, tell us about exactly what is the FAASTeam. And after the Clubhouse, people approached me and said, how do I join that? So those are the 2 things I want to address with you, at least initially.
Okay, awesome. First, just let me say thanks, Dave, for all the plugs there. We love it. We love having you as part of us. And so, gosh, I could talk about who and what the FAASTeam is for hours, but I will hold it in. We are an organization within the FAA Safety Team, call ourselves the FAASTeam, and you will hear me talk about acronyms throughout. I'll try to remember to explain what they are because we do love our acronyms. But we're an organization within the FAA who's committed to safety. And part of our mission statement is to establish partnerships and to encourage the continual growth of a safety culture within the aviation community. We do that through training, through outreach, through education, and of course, this helps lower the accident rate too, which is a very important part of our mission statement. We have dedicated and committed aviation individuals across the U.S. with our FAASTeam program managers, call them the FPMs. They're in each of our flight standards district offices, the FSDOs. Then we work with 1,000, well, actually thousands of volunteer representatives, many of these who are dedicated to UAS outreach. And of course, one of those is Dave. Wish I could pay you, Dave, but we don't have the budget for that. I can't afford you, so we just have to depend on you keeping on being the volunteer you are, an awesome volunteer. Thanks. We also develop the work programs for those FPMs in the field offices. And one of the areas we added 3 years ago when we had the first Drone Safety Awareness Week was the requirement for all of our FPMs to promote Drone Safety Awareness Week. We want them to be doing drone safety awareness all year long, but this is a special emphasis as we're doing this podcast. So as we're speaking, there are a number of activities out there. So we also, I'd be remiss, we have a group of individuals within the National FAASTeam whose primary work objective is to work with outreach and education with the UAS world, and these guys are amazing. I'll hold it to that for now. But to answer your other part of the question there, Don, because I too get busy and it's like, whoops, got to remember that one. How can you all get more involved with us? First, we'd love to have you. Second, no, I can't pay you. But three, there are a lot of awesome benefits. So go on FAASafety.gov. That's FAASafety, all one word, .gov. And dig down through there. It's pretty easy to find and see how to join us as a representative. We would love to have you. You can also call your local FSDO and they can give you information when you talk to your FPM. You will be working with them very closely, and we're just excited to have more people. Also, Dave, thanks for reminding me. I probably have some more of those industry partnership letters in my inbox to get signed today. Thanks for that reminder. We love to have you.
That's exciting. And Patricia, does the website have like prerequisites to be a member of the FAASTeam? Does it outline all of that for people?
Yes, Don, thanks. It does outline that. There's training involved. There is some security requirements because you are going into a forward-facing website and you're representing the FAA. You are not an FAA employee, and that's very important because we need to make certain that you're not held to the same standards, but we do have expectations and standards for our volunteer reps. We also, like Dave, is a drone pro. Some of our folks who have a little more experience and have worked with us even more and meet additional requirements get that title, and they're the ones we send others to because, hesitate to use, we're just like Santa Claus. We can't be everywhere at once, but we rely on all of our helpers out there. And
well, I'm sure you guys regulate Santa Claus because he's up there in the national airspace every year, and Cheyenne Mountain tracks him. Yeah. So, but you know, you talked about acronyms, Patricia, and I want to double back also. SWMS is Sean Williams from Houston, Texas. So hey, Sean. And
Sean.
we also have a couple other folks that chimed in. So it's so awesome to have an active audience today. Monica Alvarez is coming at us from Sunnyvale, California, saying it's great to tune in. And by the way, I believe on LinkedIn the other day, she gave a beautiful shout out that I really appreciate. Monica has a significant background in manned aviation, just like you, Patricia. And she's recently transitioned to the unmanned world and was kind of throwing out some of the references that have really helped her in that transition. So great to have you on here, Monica. And Will Williams looks like he is with UPS Flight Forward. man, UPS is doing amazing things with drone deliveries, and love to meet you at some point, Will. And we got Rick in St. Cloud, Florida. So a bunch of folks from Florida. I mean, this is awesome. So thanks, guys and gals, for chiming in and telling us where you're from. We love it. Drop your questions or comments in there too. Since we're talking about safety, and this is so important, right? Not just like you said, Patricia, not just this week. This week highlights it. It's every day. And by the way, you said something I also want to foot stomp as well. You said that when you're an FAA rep, you really, kind of, right, you're representing, you're a volunteer, but you're representing the FAA. What I would suggest is any drone pilot that is out there in general, I don't care if you're flying recreational, Part 107, if you're flying and there's people in the public that are watching you, you are absolutely representing the entire industry. And it is so important to not only know the rules, but to follow the rules and to be professional at all times, even when you're just having fun. Dave and I cover this in a later video, I believe, this week, but so important. I mean, having been in the military myself, we always used to say, you're on duty 24/7, because whether you're in uniform or not, you have that ID card, and you're a member, in my case, I was a member of the Air Force, and so that means something to people. And when they see a drone pilot, that means something to people. So just throwing that out there. But let's talk about why a safety culture and building that culture, Patricia, is so important for the unmanned or uncrewed world.
Well, you nailed it. It is so important that we all work together to do that. I mean, goodness, the fastest growing segment in our aviation community is the UAS community. And we, the FAA, are committed to safely bringing and integrating this technology into, here we go, the NAS, the National Airspace System. We're working with industry to gain public acceptance, and to increase their comfort level and awareness of drones. Several years ago, it was just the Christmas gift. Apparently, here's another Santa Claus. Another Christmas gift was just the drone, the kids would play with, and then it would get tossed aside. There is so much more to the UAS community than this. So we're encouraging relationships within the UAS community to build the trust and to increase safety. We're also committed to compliance and to encourage open communication. By normalizing the UAS operations, through education and outreach, we will further increase the safety culture. And by saying normalizing, it's just like when we normalize the business jets. At first it was anomalies. Who's flying those little things? Who can do that? And we continued to move forward with that. Now we're normalizing UAS operations. It's here to stay, and it's wonderful, and there are so many advantages, but all of us working together will create this safety culture that will move us forward to some areas that we'll talk about here in a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And, being a licensed attorney and having actually worked as part of my duties in the Air Force, I reviewed all the aircraft accident investigations for a 2-year period. This is not just about public acceptance, right? This can be literally life and death. This is safety is something you just cannot foot stomp it enough, because it has to be muscle memory. It has to be part of everyday existence when you're out there flying, because you're flying not only with and near the public, but with other aircraft, including manned aircraft, and just so important. And by the way, I see Dan Julin. I'm sorry, I keep scrolling into the comments because it's so exciting. Dan Julin is coming at us. He's in Canada. Dan is actually a member of Volatus Aerospace, and they're doing some great things. So Dan, great to see you. Thanks for joining us. Patricia, I want to ask you this question too. I don't like to go negative, but what are the three biggest, like I'll call them no-nos, three biggest faux pas that you guys are tracking at the FAA relating to drones? Like, what are the three biggest challenges when it comes to safety that you're seeing?
And thanks for that, Don. Yeah, I'm not the person to focus on negative either. In
Yeah,
fact, in saying, don't forget, don't forget, don't forget, I
yeah.
like to say, always remember. So one of the biggest areas we see are our drones who fly in unauthorized areas. Um, Most recently, I had the experience of dealing with some of our enforcement cases for drones that were TFR, a temporary flight restriction over the Super Bowl area,
Ay,
and
ay.
all of the pre-event.
That's almost a no-brainer. It's
Oh,
like,
I know.
seriously, you think this is a good idea? Let's fly over the Super Bowl.
You would think. However, everyone got excited because look at the cool footage and all the events that are out there. So
Yeah.
that's one major no-no we see, flying in unauthorized areas. Others are our concerts. And one of the big safety no-nos in that is drone activity around rescue operations.
Oh,
Most
yes.
recently, the building collapse in Miami. That's quite emotional because I live in a high rise too and I'm very aware of what could happen. But y'all follow the rules, check to see what are active fly, no fly areas. Don't interfere with those heroes out there working to save lives and the rescue operations. Firefighters out west, it's great to see what's going on, but just don't interfere with that. Again, do your homework, follow the rules. Another area is recent concern of near misses or mid-air collisions with drones. The airline pilots, especially, I still maintain close contact with some of the ones I worked with during my airline days. And they're concerned about these being ingested into the engines like we used to be concerned about the birds. These can do even more damage. So we're looking at some UAS detection methods at I think about 5 airports right now. And hopefully that will mitigate these and will lessen the damage there. But again, it's a safety no-no. Please pay attention. Uh, the last one that I would go ahead, John.
No, I was just going to dovetail on that and say there was actually, speaking of Dan Julin in Canada, there was actually an incident in Canada, right? And I believe it was law enforcement, and they hit a Cessna with this drone. And if you look at the nose of that airplane, I mean, luckily nobody was seriously injured, but there's a huge dent. And boy, oh boy, that's scary. So I'm sorry, what was the last one you wanted to cover there, Patricia?
Oh, that's okay. I didn't mention that one specifically because it still is just unbelievable. The last one is the complaints that the offices handle from the public regarding drones invading their privacy.
Yeah.
Whether it's true or it just is how they think. It's time the offices need to spend to allay their fears that no, they were authorized to do a real estate survey. But it's mainly due to lack of awareness and, of course, some operators not fully doing what they need to do. So those are the three that I can think of right now without going all negative on us here.
No, those are three great examples. And, I'll just tell you, I'm obviously a huge advocate for this community, but, I was walking my dogs with my husband the other day. This was more deeply in COVID, less people were outside. And there was a drone following us for a full block.
Oh my
And
goodness.
I actually took out my iPhone and I kind of like pretended to take a picture of it and I said really loud, "There's no way that's within visual line of sight. This is completely illegal." And all of a sudden they took off. But again, like that was creepy. So Dave, let's pivot to you. Given what Patricia just said, you're obviously, you're a drone pilot. You go around the country, you talk to people, you're an expert. How would you, kind of flipping that on its head a little bit, these things she's talking about, how would you recommend that pilots avoid these? Some of them are obvious, right? But like this idea of spying on people or privacy, what would you recommend to pilots that they do so people don't make these complaints and mistake them for spying on them?
Over my shoulder is a yellow vest, which is one of the things that I always do when I go out and fly. To identify yourself, make sure people know that you're there, and it's flying is a privilege. We're not entitled to do that. So you got to respect your neighbor, you got to respect the people around you, and everything else. As there's things like, we use property consent forms where I'm filling everything out and it justifies my reason for being there. We give out public notices. We hand out postcards. We go door to door and talk to people. That extra time that you take, and I'm talking to everybody in the drone community, that extra time could be that next lead for your next customer. And it also deconflicts potential problems from happening. So, it's something that we do, and yeah, it does take time, but I think that's the thing that needs to happen.
Thank you, Dave.
So I was going to ask, how are you received generally when you do these things?
The property consent form, I've never had anybody not compliment me, and it's such a simple thing. But you have carbon copies. You give one to the customer. You give one to the police. You give one to, just keep one in your pocket. Someone comes up to you, you can show it to them. That's your reason for being there. So you're not going to have the problems of. Well, I don't want to go so far as to say, because in different areas of the country, people are getting shot at with their,
yes, they are,
when they're flying their drones. I don't think a property consent form is going to make that difference. But maybe wearing a yellow vest, maybe explaining what the job is prior to doing that, and maybe notifying the police before you get on site, or those little tricks that you can do to de-escalate.
No, that's awesome.
I just want to real quickly talk, because you did mention it. This is actually the FAA Safety Representative Handbook. You were wondering what it was, and I actually grabbed it when you were talking. So that's how thick it is. It's about 61 pages, and they pretty much give you the guidelines on what you need to do and how to represent yourself.
That's awesome. Patricia, you were going to jump in there, and I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm sorry.
Oh, no worries. First of all, I was just thanking you, Dave, for being so conscientious with that and for spreading that word. But now that you've mentioned the rep training, it's not a one and done thing either. It's an annual requirement for this training. And our FPMs, remember the FAASTeam program managers who do this training, and the lead reps, learn as much a lot of times from the reps, the other volunteers, as they learn from the language that we put out. And so we're always revising that too. So anyone who's listening who wants to be a rep, again, get involved, and you may be the one responsible for us rewriting the guidance there. We're always changing things up to make it fit the times.
Well, that's hugely important, and maybe that's a great segue into the next question I have for you, Patricia. What do you predict will be maybe the next most important development that will increase the safety of drone operations?
One word: training.
Yeah.
Training is always the best way to increase safety and awareness. And then, of course, I think the drone detection devices that are being tested will probably be another great future, current advancement in safety.
Absolutely. So, Dave, pivoting to you, what would you say are maybe the three most important things that people can do to increase their own personal or organizational safety culture mindset?
Well, the first thing is to slow down. A lot of us are, we're trying to get that awesome shot. And sometimes, we're developing bad habits because we're not following a checklist or being consistent every single time we're flying. So that would be my first thing I would say that people need to do to improve is just slow down. The next one is the airspace. There's people that go to school for it. Manned aviation pilots spent years trying to understand airspace. And, most of us did the commercial part 107, and we learned airspace so that we could pass. And now we're heavily reliant on, there you go. I got one right here actually too. So,
Awesome.
now we're heavily reliant on, the apps on our phone and whatnot. When you do that, you're losing a skill. And, it's always something that you should stay on top of. I have mine as well, always on my desk.
I know, I love it. It's such a great little cheat sheet the FAA puts out. And this is your drone zone. I think you can get it there, but I got it from my pro, Vic Moss from Colorado. So, and what's the third tip you have, Dave?
Being a good neighbor, I already highlighted upon that. I think what goes around comes around. You can just as easily go and fly with a friend and be neighborly in that regard, and all of a sudden you're working together to grow your business, or they're giving you referrals or whatnot. But the word gets out pretty quickly. Who's in the way and who wants to work together. And I encourage everybody to set that example instead of being that example, and grow your business.
I love that. Set the example, don't be the example, meaning negative example, right? You don't want to be the one people are reading about in the papers. So Patricia, this is one from the audience. It's a really good one because we talked about training and how that's so important. The question is, does FAST have any plans for webinars about flying near towers and antennas, RFI interference issues with drones and electronics, and also for Part 107 pilots who may want to do tower inspections specifically?
I saw that come up, Don, and thank you for that question. I will look into this a little more. I don't have our notices up right now on where all the meetings are. I would advise you to go check with your local FPM, see if he has any, but I've also made a note of this, and I will encourage you as well to send me an email if you would like about this. We're always looking for additional topics and relying on the help of our drone pros and our reps out there as well to not only develop new webinars, but to give us other ideas. So this is great. I'm just looking here again. Bear with me while I stare at the screen to make sure I'm catching
Yeah,
it all.
you keep looking at that. I'm going to pivot to Dave while you're doing that, Patricia, because
Please do.
Dave, I know
Thanks.
you actually put together a number of training programs that if you take them, they're online, they're through the FAA website, you actually get a special a certification or something in your pilot record by taking those, if I understood that correctly. So tell us a little about that.
So essentially what we did in one of the, it was task group 8 of the DAC, is we talked about ways of leveraging an existing framework that the FAA had, and in which case it was the FAASafety.gov website. So once that went through, now what I'm being tasked with, and a lot of it's voluntary, is creating content for the UAS industry. I'm reaching out to other industry partners. Sundance Media Group, Douglas Spotted Eagle has contributed. We've got some stuff from NIST in here that's showing up. Pilot Institute's going to be contributing. I've reached out to Unmanned Safety. I hope they contribute as well. There's a lot of industry leaders that can share their knowledge with the community. And essentially you just go on FAASafety.gov effective on Sunday. All 5 of them that I've created are going to be live, and you can just take it. It's gonna credit to your pilot record, but it's going to just stop right there. Unfortunately, the FAA is still trying to figure out what to do with the wings credit, which is the equivalent of continued education for Part 61 operators or pilots. So we're still trying to figure out how that's going to apply for drone operators, but it is in the works. I can say that much.
Well, that's awesome, and this is, great. I know so many people, this tower inspection, I just did a piece for Inside Unmanned Systems magazine about drone support to critical infrastructure. Tower inspections is a part of that. It's amazing how drones are supporting like every single one of those 16 critical sectors of infrastructure. So if you haven't seen that article, go check it out. It's also my website. And it also talks about ways to plug in if you're a drone pilot to get some of that work. Speaking of, let's see, Patricia, more about drone safety and training. Dave just mentioned a couple things he's working on with the FAA. And obviously we've talked about the FAA safety.gov website. Where else would you recommend that folks go to really educate themselves about safety and the rules?
Well, thanks for plugging FAASafety.gov, because we are continually improving that, and we're so excited to have all the new courses. In addition to the new courses, though, we do have the initial, bless you, and the recurrent classes on there too for our new 107 pilots. FAA.gov has links on there as well, so they're 2 separate sites, FAASafety.gov and FAA.gov. I would also encourage you to reach out to your local FAA office, have them put you in touch with the FAASTeam program manager, and then he or she will direct you to upcoming seminars. They will talk to you about what we have in mind for new seminars, webinars, and I'm being careful to say seminars because for the last year and a half, we've done everything virtual. So seminars, webinars, and interchangeable here at this time. We're gradually working our way back to live presentations. So those would be the 3 areas I would say reach out to. There are a number of other groups highly involved, Don, your group, and all of the others. So, thanks to Google, you can go in and just say, hey, where to get info on more training, and it will most likely lead you back to our sites or other accredited sites.
Yeah, that's great. And, there's training, there's education, and just like safety, never one and done. You can always learn. And boy, this industry and is just so dynamic. Honestly, it's hard to keep up. I mean, I'm doing it full time, and it's almost like every single day something new is popping up. I mean, you guys have this Beyond Visual Line of Sight Advisory Rulemaking Committee now happening. That's really exciting. I mean, so many things coming up on the horizon. Just had the remote ID and observer people rules. Dave, let's talk for a second about other ways people can really educate themselves, plug into the community. I know this is a video we're going to do later in this week, or highlight later in this week. But there's so many other ways to plug in just besides a website. I mean, Patricia just mentioned webinars, seminars. What are some things you would recommend to people?
Seek out a mentor.
Oh, yes.
I think a lot of the manned aviation community has originally wanted to keep an arm's distance away from the drone community. But now that we know that drones are here to stay, you have organizations like the NBAA who have a mentor program, and other membership groups that are just trying to share that knowledge and wealth. So I think that's probably something that all of us should do. Not everyone's privileged like I am. I got an FAA certified flight instructor literally in the next room. So
Yeah,
seek one out, go to an airport, ask questions, talk to people. And you know what, if you can't find someone and you're not comfortable with it, talks amongst yourself, share that knowledge, and don't sit in a box. We have to grow together.
You totally agree. I mean, look, whether it's life or business or being a pilot, it's all about relationships, and having that sense of community is so important. You mentioned the NBAA. Of course, there's so many great organizations out there. One that's really near and dear to my heart, of course, is Women in Drones. Sharon Rossmark is out there doing amazing things, and I know she's on the BVLOS ARC actually with the FAA right now. There's newsletters that you can subscribe to just to keep up with what's going on, civilian and military both. I mean, there's a big synergy there, by the way, if you didn't know that. Dedicating October to support the government and defense issues. And by the way, my mentor is going to be on my podcast. I'm so excited. Major General James Poss, retired. He really helped me so much in creating my business and guided me in the industry. So having a mentor, Dave, I totally agree, is so hugely important. There's podcasts like this one. So obviously people have dialed in today. Hopefully others will come back and watch it later. But there's many other podcasts. I mean, you mentioned Greg and Pilot Institute. I think he's got like 17,000 followers that routinely dial in. Like, again, people doing great things. And what I love about this community, honestly, and I'm going to do a shout out also to Bronwyn Morgan and her Zeocast, right? She's on the Ultra board with Dave and myself, the Urban Low Altitude Transport Association, and all my Jersey boys. But we don't compete with each other. That's what I love about this industry. It's like we just like lift each other up. And I know, Dave, you're just like doing this because you and I talk about this all the time. And Patricia, you said it earlier, we're in this together. And I think this idea that there's room for everybody and everybody brings something a little bit different to the table. So let's all lift each other up and not just talk amongst ourselves, but like you said, Patricia, to the public, get that word out. It's so exciting. I have my mom dials in every week. She's like my super fan. And it's so cool because she's on Facebook with her friends like, oh, you should watch this really cool stuff about drones. And then they do. And now they're learning things about drones, right? Just because of that connection. So you did this, Dave. We just have a couple minutes left, literally two. Why don't we do this? We didn't get to cover, I mean, look, Patricia, Dave, we could talk all day long. We could talk for weeks. This has been so fun. What I want to do is just kind of give you guys each, let's just say your 30-second elevator speech kind of closer, what you want to leave people with. And maybe, Dave, we'll start with you, and maybe you want to take off where we ended there. That's my guess is what you want to do. But over to you, and then we'll end with Patricia.
I've been in this industry for about 5 years now. And my takeaway is that we all need to work together. There's this industry is growing. And with me coming from a software background, I can tell you it's going to move really fast. There's plenty of business for everybody. If there's an accident, we're all going to be standing still. So I guess my plea is for everybody to just communicate and work together. And as far as like my role with the FAA Safety Team, if you want content, tell me what you want, and I'll put it up there, and we'll do it together. But let's just keep giving back and growing this community so that we can all be flying drones.
Yeah, and Patricia, before I get to you, I want to say, Dave, he speaks truth, because he's the one that called me and said, hey, Dawn, let's do these videos. And, I was like, yeah. And of course, I got to give a shout out to my producer, Mike Pahel. He's the Oz behind the scenes here. He did those videos. He does this podcast. You don't see his face, but his fingerprints are all over this thing. And we're so appreciative of Mike and the time that he gives to this effort. So Patricia, over to you for your 30-second elevator speech.
Awesome. Well, shout out to everybody for joining and all the behind the scenes. I'm usually that behind the scenes person helping make all of this happen. But what I would say to everyone is just stay aware, take advantage of every educational outreach opportunity out there, stay safe, and have fun. That's it.
Amen to that. Absolutely. And on that note, just two quick things. One is, speaking of safety, of course, thanks again to Pair Zero. They've got amazing safety systems, and Delta Drone International for hosting this Movers and Shakers month. And we've got two amazing movers and shakers here. So thankful for your time and for your wisdom today. Also wanted to let people know, especially those interested in critical infrastructure, next week, actually tomorrow, on my Clubhouse, Drone Law Connections, which is 11 a.m. Mountain and 1 p.m. Eastern, we've got Sean Gare from the Energy Drone and Robotics Coalition. They're doing amazing things. So dial into Clubhouse, and then Sean is going to be on this podcast, same time, same place next week. So great to have Sean on here as well, talking about critical infrastructure and all the things drones are doing to support that, especially in the energy sector. So that is all she wrote. Thanks again, everybody. Really appreciate you. Be safe. And Dave, we got to do it one more time. Maybe Patricia can join us. 1, 2, 3. Fly safe.